Welcome to another episode of the Wall Street Bets podcast, where we talk about democratizing finance and DeFi to make it more accessible for everyone. I'm Venus DeMille, and today we'll be joined by Decentraland's head of partnerships, Cata, to talk about the brave new world of metaverses, decentralized real estate, and the latest collaboration between Wall Street Bets and Decentraland. But first, some current market news. China announced for the 836th time that it would be banning crypto. While it didn't go entirely unnoticed by the markets, it seems to have had a lesser and lesser effect as more and more investors are now hip to the inside jokes about it. Similarly, talks of Western Union being disrupted by Twitter's new Bitcoin tipping feature, in unison with El Salvador's new Bitcoin rule going into effect, has taken the media world by storm. There are even calls to short Western Union, many being ready to eliminate the antiquated high-fee money transfer service that has thrived in the developing world due to remittances. And finally, Cathie Wood's ARK investment buys $89 million worth of Twitter stock after Bitcoin tips integration launched this week. We are now going to be joined by Adam Cata of Decentraland, where he's the head of partnerships. Adam is based in Melbourne, Australia, where it's morning, and he's joining us live. Welcome, Adam.
Great to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Now, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you came into this role?
So I've always been intrigued with crypto and blockchain, but probably deep dived into it at the start of last year. My prior background is in intellectual property rights. So I worked at Warner Brothers, the film studio, and their consumer product licensing division, looking after evergreen properties like DC Comics, which included The Dark Knight Rises and Harry Potter, amongst like Looney Tunes and a few other things. But from there, it was sort of ingrained in me about the power of IP, and there was instances where I still reflect on it now, 12 years later, where like you can have a Superman movie or a franchise that was underwhelming at the theatrical release, but still the S shield would stand for empowerment no matter how poor the movies did. I think for that reason alone, I started my own agency from there and worked with entertainment for what is now almost 10 years. Blockchain was intriguing enough once non-fungible tokens sort of there wasn't as much information as there is today, but it sort of helped me deep dive into what that meant for IP and how that would work. So I connected the blocks per se, and came across Decentraland not only when Mana was released, which is their token, but more so once I sort of started to connect those blocks with what it would mean for a non-fungible token in the virtual experience of Decentraland or other metaverses. And from there, I've started working with them a lot closer from the start of this year, whilst being in contact at the later half of last year with them. Yeah.
The timing of it was such that you could, it's a really interesting background actually with the intellectual property, because I would actually jump back to what you were saying, 12 years ago, talking about whether it's a comic book IP or whatnot, there was a different discussion around those things at the time, right? In terms of, pre-streaming platforms and pre-franchising of some of these properties. I think a lot of these intellectual properties were undervalued. And I think actually there's a family who owns a lot of these DC comics, including Batman, that had them for 20 years and, couldn't get arrested with these comics. And suddenly they've turned out to be one of the most sort of like profitable cornerstones of the Warner Brothers franchise. So it was, I think probably having somebody with your skill set and background come into this and look at it and understand intellectual property would have been a really, really, incredible edge for Decentraland as a project.
Even just personally, like I feel like I can wake up every morning and my learning's forever evolving as the technology evolves too. And I think, it's an interesting time. When you consider even like NFTs and crypto art and what that means, the level of satire, it's a gray area of intellectual property that, you look at something like Beeple's artwork and uses a lot of IP, and what that balance is within his inspiration versus that of leveraging the IP directly. And I think there's this blend of something that's really amazing. you know, like you've got artists like Cause that have been able to build a career around, that level of satire.
Yeah.
But, at the same time, yeah, it was just an amazing journey to sort of learn through the processes of what this may mean for intellectual property holders, and then how that could then, be executed in a virtual world experience that is no different from building content in, the physical world as such. But yeah, lots to digest and talk about today, I feel.
Yeah, I can imagine, and I can imagine like the learning curve of coming into a project like this would have been really interesting.
Totally.
And so can you talk a little bit also about just, your role within Decentraland? How does it work when you come across a project like Wall Street Bets and there's a decision to, do a collaboration of sorts? How does that unfold? How does that take shape?
I might take another step back and maybe explain a little bit about Decentraland, and then, like how it sort of builds out from there. So, 4 years ago, Decentraland launched their land sale. So it's a virtual world. And for us, we sold 90,000 parcels of land, and from that moment onwards, it became a community-owned and community-led project. The foundation, which is what I work with, was set up alongside the DAO, the Decentralized Autonomous Organization, to make not only Decentraland decentralized, but also a funding program across both. So 225 million mana at the time was investing smart contracts for the foundation, and the same 220 is the same value, but independently another 225 million mana to the DAO. So the foundation is funded by this mana, which is the in-platform token at the time. So there's a lot more to mana than just Decentraland, but from that moment, we were able to build the team. The foundation looks after the IP, the marketing and growth, community and events, and also obviously the devs. And we look at it from a holistic perspective of community-focused projects, and how that, maybe it's the wearables builder, which is a digital garment builder that the community can use to build digital garments, or, that they're in land and, they're building. We build those SDKs and a lot of other supporting areas of making sure that the platform runs as effectively as it can within even the limitations of being on a browser at this stage. So that's that team. And then the DAO see it as like a community grant and community voted system, where, you can apply for different grants to help fast track or push the project, or the projects along with the platform itself. So, if you want to develop a more effective API, you can put it through to the community, and however much it will cost, the community can then vote if that was to be passed forward. Holding land, mana, the token, owning a wearable or owning a name gives you voting rights and governance. It's an amazing human experiment, really, and one that continues to evolve day in, day out. Yeah,
that's exciting. That's and helpful as a background.
Yeah, so when thinking about like Wall Street Bets, we look at ways to inspire the community and also drive more experience to the platform. And I think any partnership that we've done and work with, it's with that holistic view of making sure that no one is onboarded in a way that they're in the dark. There's a natural connection to taking these live streams and being able to, elevate them to an experience within virtual worlds. There's also a lot more that can be done too that can encourage education and connection to a community of people that are like-minded, and push the boundaries of what we can do in technology is always something that inspires me in general. So at the core of it, it's that the foundation's really there to make sure that no one's going in the dark and not moving through the without knowing and understanding what they can do. So most of our work's onboarding, and most of our work is direct to inbox. So when I personally reached out to Jamie at Wall Street Bets, it's hand on heart the first time I've actually done it. Prior to that, it's been most from Sotheby's or Coca-Cola to all the different exchanges that we have, to the Web3 galleries that support crypto art from Super Rare, et cetera, et cetera. It's been the other way around. But I feel like when I noticed that Jamie had reached out online about NFTs, it just felt like the right time to be able to connect and see where the Wall Street Bets and the DApp is heading, and understand how we could explore an opportunity where it would make sense to bring the IP into the virtual world. So,
yeah. And so I remember when Sotheby's did their collaboration with you, that was a really big deal, because it was also like in the peak of the sort of NFT craze with the Beeple, et cetera, earlier this year. And so you're saying they reached out to you guys and said, we'd love to do something inside of Decentraland.
Yeah, we got connected. So, and I think having a 300-year-old auction house wanting to do something within, blockchain was pretty impressive enough. But, like, to see and witness and see them evolve within the metaverse has been super interesting too. Like they recently sort of launched their second level of their build, which is a 1-to-1 scale of their Bond Street gallery. And the first build was very much that 1-to-1 scale. The floor plan was met 1-to-1. But the second level, when they launched that, which was in line with Bored Ape Yacht Club's auctions that they did, which is an NFT program, membership program, it was really, like we spoke about how best we wanted to activate and execute. And I sort of threw out to them that we should do something that was a little bit more absurd, and let's take over and make it a swamp, and that the Bored Apes are really taking over Sotheby's, and like they were up for it, which is really, really nice to see, because I feel like that level of absurdity can really connect on another level. And there is no red line, there's no engineering reports, there's just time and really great devs to be able to deploy great experiences and builds. And I think we did a great job at that experience, and it was really great and humbling to see that they were open to doing that too, because I feel like in March it probably wouldn't have been the conversation that we would have had, but a couple of months later they're more than open to discussing these things.
And I would imagine there's probably a sense of a lot of these institutions that are very, very old, very sophisticated, are probably starting to bring people onto their team to help them understand these types of opportunities. But there is still a certain degree of having to look to you guys, as a creative lead, to say, how can we navigate this and create something in a way that not just connects with, maybe their existing clients, but actually your community, which is unique. Yeah,
totally. And then that's the thing, like, I do feel like, within our team, we've got, Sam Hamilton, who's an amazing community events lead. Really, he's been, I think he was a third employee of Decentraland. He lives and breathes and phenomenal ideas. David Carr, who leads the comms as part of the marketing team. Like the way that we sort of approach different opportunities as a collective bunch, ideally with a little bit more time than sometimes how reactive we need to be in others. But I think using the team itself to really benefit and connect with the community at hand. Sorry, I should have made my phone on. But I think ultimately working with us has always helped. And I think, from 99% of my conversations that I've had with different partners, they're more than welcoming to those type of discussions about how they can, deploy something of an experience that can connect to a crypto audience that has to be treated as a new territory. Like a number of brands can come into the space with great IP, but how many of them are actually have a digital wallet?
Right.
How many of them are actually interested in buying and using their NFTs within the virtual world? But yeah, and it's a very small bunch.
Yeah, I would imagine that, and this is one of my questions that I have for you, that, again, it's one thing for your existing community to navigate through these events and these collaborations, but if you're taking, whether it's the Wall Street Bets audience or the Sotheby's audience, what are you finding is the biggest challenge in terms of onboarding, anyone new into Decentraland?
I feel like, you can connect to Decentraland in two ways. One, you can connect your digital wallet, or you can play as a guest. So the friction isn't really there. Sometimes it comes down to the limitations of the technology. So we're a browser-based platform at the time being. We have plans the coming months to be able to move that finally over to desktop. But it does require a decent amount of graphics, GPU power to be able to run it. So that's one part. I feel that someone who does enter might have an experience that does require some tweaking from a settings perspective to really connect. And like the other part is that people are still trying to work out, even though the buzzwords at the moment are non-fungible tokens, NFTs, and metaverses. How much is that relevant to their world? And I think we continue to just try and bridge that gap with really great experiences in the platform, and ultimately, feeding our community that can continue to feed out from their great experiences. And there's this balance at this stage. But we've seen really great growth over this last year. And that's obviously peaked within interest of what is happening in the market in blockchain. I think most people's understanding, even those that are in, and by in I mean sold into having a MetaMask, or like buying a few NFTs or buying a lot more. The buzzword I see in a lot of NFT projects currently is around utility and benefits.
Yeah.
The reality of that is that I don't feel like people have really connected what that actually may mean in terms of value for NFTs. And what I love about working with Decentraland is that it's about the interoperability between a token that someone has in their wallet and what access that may give them or benefits that they give them in the virtual world, which is the most powerful part about this. It doesn't become a digital scarce asset anymore. It becomes a lot more than that. So hypothetical is that, you and I could own a particular NFT that allows us to get into a space that only we can get into, in that space, maybe an interview and an AMA or a discussion that, could have really great value to us, being if it was just with Jamie, hypothetical, and then that's all possible within, Decentraland. It's an open source platform, and we use that's a really basic vanilla perspective too, of how to have that interoperability between a token that someone owns and then the utility and benefits in the virtual space. There's more that we can explore with, obviously people can get airdropped virtual garments and digital goods, which they can then wear in the virtual world. But where I'm really intrigued is like once the platform, gets to where it is, characters, like your player can have an OP because it has a particular token. And, that may mean, in its most easy understanding that if you're playing a DeFi game, for instance, or, that you get higher yields in the game because you've got that particular token, or you're, able to get, there's so many, like we could really go down on that, but, I think even with where the platform's at, you can, validate someone's token to give them access. And that there is this really powerful niche where you and I right now are speaking to a whole heap of people in the metaverse, right? And people can get free access, and that's awesome. But sometimes we want a deeper level of understanding of that, and that is all possible within holding a particular token in the virtual world.
When did you first become aware of the term metaverse?
It's been thrown around a lot. I feel like a couple of years ago it was there, but I had a very different understanding to what the metaverse is probably today.
Yeah, I remember seeing Ready Player One years ago. When Spielberg, and that was probably the first time I'd really heard about it or thought about it. But it apparently was coined by Neil Stephenson in a 1992 novel called Snow Crash. And it was Ernest Cline who wrote Ready Player One that actually sort of reinvented and captured it in, I think, a much more visual way in terms of what he would communicate. But I do also see it, I think because it is so buzzy right now, it means different things to different people. And, I think there have been a lot of really interesting articles written about, how to help people understand what it is or why we're talking about it so much. But you make a great point, which is that, I think the NFT craze at the beginning of this year, people were understanding this idea of something that was rare and something that was collectible, that you could treat like a trading card. But there wasn't a lot of discussion so much around the utility of those things. And I would say 9 out of 10 people I know who've acquired NFTs earlier in the year weren't even asking those questions. They just, they saw this craze happening. They wanted to be a part of it. They're like, buy now, ask questions later. And we've had, a little bit of a sort of quiet part of the year to, I think, for people to sort of recollect themselves and start to investigate more. Wait, what is this thing I bought? Or what can it do? And it seems like there's been this second wave of NFTs that are now more aligned with the gaming industry, or the blockchain gaming industry specifically, where people are like, no, this is a spaceship. You can actually use it to go somewhere within the game, or there's a wearable, or there's some kind of vehicle that gets you from point A to point B, or as you said, sort of an experience that you can unlock. So we're starting to understand that within the concept of a metaverse, they function more like keys that unlock experiences and possibilities that aren't there without the thing that you own.
Totally. And a lot's unwritten as well, and that's the most exciting bit about where we're at in terms of this place right now. We're all exploring it. We're all trialing different things. And, the technology is catching up, but we're also catching up with where we can be. And I think that's a really exciting place to consider, that we're all learning and we're all developing and we're all working out how best to add value wherever we can. Yeah.
And can you elaborate a little bit on what makes a blockchain metaverse different or unique from both two things? One, a traditional game. So sometimes people will try to contextualize some games that are already out there that are coming out of, Activision, Epic, et cetera, as metaverse games, but they are sort of missing the blockchain element. And then also just what makes it different from anything that's been conceived in the past, even if we're going back to something like, Second Life, which was, I think, somewhat prototypical in the space.
I'll take another one as well, where, we're just speaking about metaverses, and my understanding of a metaverse is a lot broader than probably what it was when I watched Ready Player One, which was very game focused, right?
Yeah.
But right now, you and I believe we're in the metaverse right now. You and I, we're only connected because of the digital tech that's in front of us, right? It's because my webcam, my internet, your webcam, your internet, and your microphone that we're here. And we've all been engaging in the metaverse for a very long time without recognizing it. It's then, what makes the virtual world and Decentraland, or the metaverses within blockchain, different, and it's just part of the one precinct of metaverse, but an extension of the connection to the community, right? So for us, we've got verifiable ownership over our goods. It might be that I have in my wallet particular wearables or land that I own. I can pay within a token or multiple tokens on the platform. So there's a level of ownership that's just different, and you can't get in a conversation like you and I have right now within StreamYard. And then, the special part about Decentraland is it's an open source platform, and it's decentralized. So, that human experiment that we spoke about before is something that's very unique to Decentraland, and like really expresses this whole notion of what's decentralized versus not centralized. So I think that level of ownership is really important, and that explores this whole blockchain space that you can own land. And I think that was the hardest challenge, or most difficult challenge to overcome initially. It was like, well, how do you prove that I own this land and someone else can't just take it? Or how do I prove that this wearable is one of 10 or one of 100? And they're all possible because of the blockchain, right? So, I think each and every platform has its own different ways that communities can engage. I was on a panel the other day with a financial institution that was talking about one of their funds that they had, and it was a AAA game. And I noticed this point when we speak that, like, I always look for penny drop moments, like anywhere and everywhere to help connect these blocks, as I call them. And the question was very similar, where it was like, well, how can we will we ever get this AAA game to be on Decentraland? And I said, well, the difference is, it's not how do we get the game on there. If a brand has an Instagram and they have a Facebook and they've got a TikTok and they've got a Twitter, and then they might have had a MySpace back in the day, the reason why they had all those things, or do have them, is to connect with communities. So there's no difference in having something on Decentraland, because there is a community out there that you're probably not targeting out of the rest of the platforms, or can streamline stronger connections with by doing things within Decentraland. And I think at that moment it was like, okay, they have all these, why don't they do this in there? And it was like, you don't get the same experience as you do on playing it on console. But it doesn't have to be the game either. It can be a community HQ, like it can be, it doesn't have to be so, okay, we're a game company, because at the end of the day, no one's playing that game on Instagram. They're just watching content, and they're looking at updates and other parts, So, yeah, I feel like it's bridging that gap about what Decentraland can mean with different IP, but how it can connect with communities in ultimately different ways too.
Yeah. Amazing. And how do you, when you guys sort of measure the outcome or the success of any particular event or collaboration, for instance, how do you measure it? And what are some of the most popular and successful events that you guys have hosted, or partnerships that you've hosted?
Yeah, we've got a very active and amazing community, so they keep us really honest. I'm frequently looking at our Discord, our Twitter, but at the same time, there's this beautiful thing called a POAP, so a proof of attendance protocol.
Yeah.
See it as like a virtual ticket. I don't know if back in the day, I used to go to music events and keep a lanyard, for instance, that would like represent, that I was there for whatever reason, and I'd keep it in my room. Same to a ticket, like I've got some tickets from some of my first concerts that I went to with my friends, and I kept them. I don't know where they are now, but I remember keeping them, and that was like my the thing that I recognized is like that moment in time. In the virtual world, we work with an entity called POAP, which is proof of attendance protocol. So it's a virtual ticket that references when you've been at a particular time, and there's like a ticket booth that you go to, and they're really hot spots for a lot of the Decentraland community, where, for instance, at Wall Street Bets, we had like 4 of them, and it becomes this really collectible thing to prove that you're at that space at that one time, and it's just interesting to sort of see why and how they've become such an important figure in someone's experience in Decentraland. It's like, I was there at this point, and because we're so early, and the community's, it's still growing, it's like those that missed out on those things either need to buy them on the secondary market to reference that maybe they weren't there, but at least they were privy to what was happening. That people have been able to collect them. Like there's lots of different people that just swarm for these type of POAPs at different events, and I think that's a great indication to sometimes how successful an event is. Like we hosted ZRUD in Decentral Games, which is a partner of ours, but like they own their own land within their own district.
Yeah.
And Decentral Games has like a number of like different things that they've also got a casino license and gambling license, which is just so interesting. But they hosted ZRUD's party, and like I think it capped at 9,000 or so popes, which is a really high number. MetaMask celebrated the 10 million user party in Decentraland, which was really special to witness, because 14 odd months ago they just ticked over 1 million, so 10 times growth in a year, which is pretty impressive. And like that had a really high PO-up, and Wall Street Bets, funnily enough, comes in third, which was really, really great to see.
Wow, that is exciting.
Yeah,
that's great. And how can you, just for the audience, can you just explain quickly just how do you acquire a PO-up?
So as a user, you would see like this virtual ticket booth basically, and you go in and you just click it, and it ends up in your wallet, and you can reference that on their site, where you can go in and now reflect back on the events that you were part of. It's an interesting concept, and it takes a little bit of time to really understand it. But if you see it as like a virtual ticket that just references that time and place that you're there, like I like personally doing ones which I've been affiliated with the event, but sometimes I've even missed out. We had like an event with Jay-Z at Sotheby's, and the PO-up was gone, within an hour, like, because you only fill it to a certain amount, and you can definitely refresh it. But I was pretty annoyed that I missed out on that one. But but I reference PO-ups as like events that I've done, for instance. And I think people see them in different ways, but it's a really great point to be able to go, okay, well, so much is happening, and like we live and breathe in a Wild West community in a weird way that I've never personally experienced. I know that crypto doesn't sleep, but to be able to work within the community the way that I do, it's really intense. It's like what I feel like we reference like dog years, right? So like dog's life is like that 7-year odd, for every human year. And I feel like being in the NFT blockchain community, it's like every day is like the equivalent of a month, I feel sometimes in like our space. So it moves so quickly that you've got this point and an anchor to remind you of certain things that were there. And I've seen also a lot of different, like there's an artist that did an exhibition, and recently someone sold one of their popes for like 0.4 ETH, which is pretty insane to think that.
So there is
because of and I think there's that part of it too, but I'm a romantic. I think about it in another way, but there's a level of scarcity to these things. If there was only 1,000 people there, there's only 1,000 that could be able to sell these in the future if they wanted to. It's an interesting one.
I mean, we can imagine what the value of a T-shirt that actually came from Woodstock, the original music festival, would be worth today.
Wearables are crazy. There's because we recently moved to a layer 2 protocol, Polygon, to make it more effective and efficient in terms of airdropping and buying and selling digital garments. And prior to that, we're on Ethereum, which is a costly exercise. Like I remember paying like $80 in gas for something, but like because there were wearables from 2 different eras, there's different value to them too, which it'll be really interesting to see what happens in the future for sure in terms of the demand for them.
So how do people generally discover Decentraland, if not through an event or an activation such as what we did with WSB? How do you find most people discover it for the first time?
There's multiple touch points. I feel like a lot of, even the crypto community that, may not have bridged that interest in terms of, that they haven't bridged that interest into like DeFi or, NFTs. they'd recognize Mana as a token. It's rare to see something that's existed for so long, especially in our space. But I think there's multiple things, but for us it is very event driven. So I do feel like different events, different audiences continue to drive different interests, and we're planning a whole heap of different things moving forward too. We've just announced a music festival with a date that's going to be released this week, and that's really something that we're really, really excited about internally. We've spent a lot of time on this, and hopefully that starts to bridge a gap of interest where people can experience Decentraland within entertainment rather than gallery launches for NFTs or educational discussions around whatever it may be at our university, or going to the casino to gamble some Ethereum or Decentral game token. There's multiple touch points. It's more so we know that within the limitations of what we've got at the moment, we just want to make it as amazing as we can and continue our growth whilst working on a growth strategy once we're at a point where the platform is for the taking. Because we're realistic, and we know that it has its own challenges, but we continue to learn as our devs do, and they do an amazing job at trying to work through and troubleshoot what needs to happen. So multiple different touch points. It's always interesting to hear when someone's experienced it for the first time, and I think once people start to sort of make their way around and understand it more, it's they explore it and find different ways that they are engaged with it too. It's been really great to see different people experience it at different points, and then to speak to them now, and they're really big believers, as I am. We all dream big, right? My partner says that I'm just a dreamer because I'm a Pisces, but I do feel like I've met enough other, I feel like we're all sort of dreaming in some way about what this could be in the future. But having realistic goals about where we're at as well is probably a great thing that keeps us grounded.
How has this affected your sense of reality in terms of the amount of time you're spending in the metaverse versus, the real world? Is this a game changer?
Look, like I said, I'm a big smart contract romantic, and I really do believe in non-fungible tokens adding so much value to crypto, and also just blockchain, and also to the everyday user. I do feel like virtual worlds and metaverses play a key part in utility. So for me, it's hard to get my head out of the clouds, because I do like to think of how these things can really help and add value. But it also is nice to take a walk and breathe some air, and and that's and I think that's the hardest challenge we have in general with social media and the internet, is being able to just have that balance. And I think for us, working within blockchain and crypto, it's really intense. We spoke about it before, and it's like you could spend a couple of days offline and miss out on so much information that may have come out. So it's just finding that happy medium, that equilibrium that keeps you in, but also sane life as well, right? So
yeah, absolutely. So I've got one more question for you, and then we're going to bring on a special guest. Jamie Rogozinski is going to be joining us very soon to talk about the Diamond Hands event. But in the meantime, there was one thing that I was reading across in my research that I thought was really interesting, which was that when Decentraland first launched as a beta in 2017, there were developers selling virtual land parcels for as little as $20. And following the 2021 NFT boom in NFT art, the most desirable real estate in Decentraland was selling for more than $100,000 per parcel. Can you just give us a quick sort of insight on how you guys look at real estate in Decentraland, and what is the most valuable piece of land that's in there right now?
The interesting part is, because it's community led, we sold our land, the foundation owns some land, but at the same time, 90,000 parcels were sold. So there was a level of scarcity that was deemed at that point in time. With increase of demand and limited supply, the natural thing within economics is that prices will rise, right? So, which is, you know, like in NFTs in general, but yeah, you know, there was points in time where Decentraland was giving away land on, you know, for social competitions. You know, there were points in time when people were flipping, and there's others that, you know, have hulled. You know, like it's a really there's two different mindsets. I feel there's ones that come from, you know, that crypto community where, you know, like we're here, we're going to make profit, we're going to buy land, we're going to sell land, right? And then there's the other part is like, well, we want to create experiences, we want to use the technology for something else. And we're trying to bridge that gap as a foundation. We want to inspire people to use their land, to connect with communities, to hopefully build infrastructure around them so that they can then sell if they wanted to in the future with something more than just an empty parcel of land. And I think that there is like a really interesting equilibrium. You know, like you look at the property market in the physical world, it's a piece of land versus something that may have a property on it, or you know, a couple of different buildings that, you know, have commercial leases, or, you know, a business that might be, you know, fundamentally doing very well that you can sell with the land is probably more compelling than just buying the land. And I think, but for us, it's community led and community owned. So we don't have any control of what people do, but it is, you know, like most average parcels of land are, you know, between $5,000 to $7,500. You need to connect to go higher, like as in to have the build higher in you know, and have more poly count. You need to be able to own multiple parcels of land to be able to do that. So, you know, the core of it is that someone might own one parcel, but those that own multiple connected to each other can have some epic builds. You know, what you would have seen with Wall Street Bets is a 4x5, so 20 parcels of land. And you would have seen how high that was and how deep it was, and, you know, it's rare. There are lots of different entities that have 3 to 4, 4 to 5. Sotheby's is 4 to 5, but, you know, yeah, some of the I remember seeing almost $1 million sale, you know, in June, and that was like hundreds of parcels of land that were bought. So they were all part of a precinct. So yeah, it's just crazy to see, but, you know, like it doesn't surprise me either.
Yeah. Well, I was so impressed, you know, during the walkthrough of the Wall Street Bets land within Decentraland, of what you guys had built and in the time frame that you built it. And it was just beyond my expectations. And there was just so many layers of thought and detail that went into it that really got a lot of these, you know, nuances and part of the community culture and all of these things. So I was really, really wowed, and I just thought it was so exciting for this project. We are going to have Jamie join us now, live in the studio. Who
Hi.
is part of all that. Hi, Jamie. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. How are you?
Good. Good.
Good. So I've been listening to most of this. I just have a question for Adam. Did you have a MySpace?
I did. It's where I learned my early coding. Yeah.
Really? There was coding on MySpace?
Well, yeah, you could change your background and add a few different features, and that was like early days of coloring. So, you know, I learned.
All right, let's rewind a few years. What about Geo? What was it called? No. Now I've just showed my hand. Like Geospaces or Geo World, whatever that was.
No.
The website builder, whatever it is, same deal. It was like the first round of animated GIFs, what now sells for like tens of thousands of dollars. Used to GeoCities, that's what it was called.
Yeah, I've heard. Yeah,
you've heard of
it.
Yeah. Full disclosure, Adam called me a dad the other day. I'm still recovering from that.
Did you tell one of those jokes?
No. I was trying to tweet something, and, you know, like I clearly didn't understand like the, you know, certain cultural aspects of things, and yeah, that was fun. But yeah, definitely. I
didn't want to offend you, Jamie, but
no, I happen to be a dad. You know, I have to embrace it.
Yeah, it's funny. It was a GM chat, which we were talking about, where it was like there's a whole community within NFT Twitter. It's that, you know, everyone's got these different acronyms at the moment, and I threw them over to Jamie because he's always living and breathing. I love the fact that he's just wants to know information, and I sent him over a little thing and I was like, hey, here's some, you know, like info about it, and he read it and then put his own dad spin on it without recognizing that it was like a GM. Then there was a whole nother thing. I was like, no, it just needs to be GM. And I think it was saying good night, but he still said GM. And I was like, oh, that's very dad, you know, like,
good night.
I'm definitely a hands-on learner. Like, just dive into everything, click on everything, do everything, learn by, you know, learn by making mistakes. It's absolutely wonderful. But yeah, I did have one other thing to say. You were mentioning that on the Decentraland event for Wall Street Bets, we had the third highest number of popes collected. But I tried to collect it. You made it sound easy. Like, you walk up to the person, you say, I'd like a Pope now. No. This thing was, I was like, you know, with the hot dog guy, I had to ask for different colors of hot dogs, whatever it is. I'm willing to bet we would have beat #1 spot if it was a one clicker, but it was more fun that way. So I enjoyed it.
There's, and you know, who knows what it may have been without the sort of, the challenges, but I do think, you know, this is a shout out to Lustrum, which is the head developer for Last Slice, which was the entity that worked with Jamie and the team to build this experience. You know, they're a community of about 100 devs, builders, like-minded individuals, marketing. You know, like it's a really amazing community, and they took the challenge on. But part of it is that, you know, because these POAPs are such a high, you know, there's a high value to them just by being able to collect them, that there's a farming mentality that is there as well. So how skewed the data would have been for MetaMask versus that of Zrun. The reason to why we had these little challenges was so that it would prevent some of that to happening. And, you know, yeah, who knows what it may have been, but it was still
but quite honestly, it was more entertaining. That, like, I appreciated it much more. It's not about breaking records, right? It's about having a good experience. And
next time,
we'll break a record next time. Next time we can break some. We can just stand under the diamond that crashes. Yeah, I also agree with Sarah. That was quite an incredible real estate, whatever. I don't even know what you would call that, like experience that you guys set up, and you did it very, very well, very fast. And I had a really good time with that. I was cracking up so much. When you
I remember showing everyone, and I feel like there was a really special moment where you were going into the unknown. You weren't sure what you were going to get, you know, like, was this Windows 95 DOS sort of vibes, or was it a, you know, like, was it to be, you know, a high premium game? And I feel like when Lustrum and the Last Slice team took it on themselves, they lived and breathed your IP. They really worked within what it may mean, and then they put their own spin on it. And it was that moment where he turned around and you saw the avatar, then see the experience, that it was really great to witness that it sort of had this, there was this moment where you were like, oh, okay, there's an epic proportion to what it could be, you know. And I feel, you know, the community as a whole, like, hands on heart, I do believe it was, you know, the most engaging and strongest experience that we've had so far. Like, a great case study to hopefully inspire other communities to be able to lead by example in this sort of case where,
yeah, well, it should be. And quite frankly, like, when I was looking at that, I'm always thinking like 10, 20 steps ahead. And while it was fun and entertaining and very funny and active, I can see how this type of experience transcends a game, right? Like, it's so easy to associate it because it's on the computer and it's got graphics. And, you know, the closest thing that you can compare it to is a game that people look at and say, this game doesn't look like fun or whatever, or this game looks kind of silly. This, to me, was an example of how it can be more than just a game. It can actually be, you know, there's different, once again, they were really humorous and very clever the way that there were different stores and corners or whatever. But, you know, you can have, obviously people do NFT galleries and then they have their pictures up there, or you can have whatever, their little, you know, games that you can do trade. But I could see an actual economy taking place, right? Where people actually show up and they do stuff and they do work that they love doing. And it can be pretty much just, I mean, you can have a real estate agent running around Decentraland selling parcels of land and taking a commission from that and actually making real money because it's a real thing, right? So like, I don't know. To me, it was a transcending experience as well.
On that point about like the ecosystem evolving, and I think it's a really interesting point. It's like 12 months ago, you know, there were very few. There was a builder that you could use within Decentraland to put some walls up, a door, a couch in your space. Now you've got, you know, teams that I've witnessed personally that have grown from only a few people to 30 to 50. You know, that are able to build scenes like we've just experienced with Wall Street Bets or the wearables, where you know you had a gift to any of your signups, and there were sunglasses. Like there's different teams that are now building out, and I do feel like there's you know, licensing of leases that are coming through, which make it a lot more affordable for people to buy in, and you know, because of the cash flow management and being more liquid instead of having to throw down a whole heap of fiat or, you know, crypto to buy some land. But yeah, the ecosystem itself has been really special to see evolve. And I do feel like, you know, there are multiple different entities that now support this community-led project that can help build that experience.
Even after that, right? Like that is a logical next step, is having, you know, like an ecosystem that supports this thing. It's like, all right, cool. You want to build your building. You don't know how to, pay me to do it. That's cool. That's your virtual construction guy. You can also have, I mean, if you have a lot of traffic to a place where people spend a lot of time in it, right? That is no different than being in Times Square or being in a shopping mall or being in other places of commerce that actually generate revenues for businesses. So you can actually sell an ad because you own that property. And I'm sure I'm saying things that people have thought of already, but to me, it's all still new. So I like to think I'm innovative, but you can have people selling physical products, the real things that are going to be shipped to your house, but in a little virtual store. And why would somebody want to do that? Is if you have the foot traffic, that's the reason why online ads work, right? That's the only reason why shopping malls that used to exist before coronavirus, that's the way those things used to work. It's, hey, people have to walk from here to there. They're going to walk past your store and they may want to go inside. It's like, now you can actually create this second life, right? For lack of a better word, and make it, I don't know. I think it's really cool.
On that note, so Lastrom, who did all the work, he actually worked with Domino's back in, I think it may have been February, March. And he put in a similar sort of kiosk area where you could go to that kiosk. And if you're an American resident, you could order a pizza within the platform and it would be delivered to your house, which was super interesting because it's like that whole traffic scenario. You're right on, Jamie. I'm always very surprised. For a dad, you're picking up a lot because because I think, you know, that advertising scenario, or, you know, building community that are intrigued enough about a particular parcel of land. I was speaking to Venus about it just before. It's like, you can have land that's empty, or you can have land that's really busy that can operate in different ways. And I think we're all sort of working through what the revenue model might be. You know, the only one that I've really seen, you know, dig into this is, you know, Decentral Games, which is it's an own entity. It's nothing to do with Decentraland Foundation, but we're very much one of the OGs in the space, and they've got a gambling license, and they've been able to, you know, extend that gambling license to other land that they've got, or, you know, within their own casinos that they have in Decentraland. And I think it's, you know, like they've built an amazing revenue model based on it. It's a bit more concerning on the other side to why the revenue's there. But, you know, I think an interesting one nonetheless. And it becomes appealing because a lot of people want to be part of Decentral Games and that district because of how many people are walking and actively being there as well. And I think, you know, with what we're planning to do with, you know, you guys, hopefully there's a place where there's a freemium model where people can still experience certain aspects of the IP, but, you know, there's this added bonus by particularly, you know, having this token that you're working on to be able to get access to further utility and further benefits in time too, which at its core was why we started working on this Decentraland experience, was that you wanted to do a virtual event. And I remember speaking to you about this and you're like, I'm going to stream it in potentially. I was going to do this. We worked around a project which was like, okay, I want to deliver a keynote. at the core of it, it was about going to the moon and seeing the keynote. It was just this journey that you went through to get there, which I think was the kicker in all of it. So
yeah. And for those of you that don't know, like, I started talking with Adam 3 weeks prior, right? And we're exploring this concept with Decentraland, whatever it is. And I'm like, all right, how quick are you? Right? How fast can you put something on? I was like, what are you thinking? You want to have a little meet and greet? And I'm like, yeah, something like that. You have 3 weeks and he took on the challenge. And
I had no expectations of like where this was going to go to. I was actually completely shocked when I saw what they built in that time frame. It was like, I've never seen anything like that in the history of animation or graphic design or,
well, just intuition. Like, it takes time to creatively come up with that. It was like Goldman's sack or whatever. Like, that was hilarious. Like,
I enjoyed what was the there was a cafe, Everything is Fine, and
yeah, with the fire and then
running
on their seats are on fire.
That was a lot of fun.
Like yeah.
But you've got amazing, like, the part which is really great to see in these communities that we speak about, like Last Slice, which is where Lastrom, like, that's his community. You've got multiple different people that, come from different worlds, all connected for a like-minded vision. And it's like, there are people that have come from marketing agency backgrounds or digital agency backgrounds. You've got these devs, there's hackers, there's animation experts. They've all collectively come together and, like, when sort of briefing them on the opportunity, they took it and went even further than we'd all thought. So, like, kudos to them, but also working within IP and exploring what that means. You've got a lot of different, there's lots you can gravitate to. I always found it funny about the whole tendies thing. And like, how was someone going to explore that within, a visual representation that's just not a chicken tendies?
I want to know why somebody hadn't come up with, at least I hadn't bumped into somebody doing the play on word Wendy's, right? When they just called it tendies. Like, that was such an obvious play, and it was almost painful to see that I hadn't seen it before, because that was just brilliant. But on that note, I want to take advantage to talk about, like, these NFTs. Like, the first thing that I was interested in when talking with you in Decentraland was being able to provide these experiences with people, right? With one-on-one. I'm like, yeah, I'm well connected with all sorts of really interesting people, and it doesn't, I don't cease to be amazed with how. Just last week, I was spending time with Brittany Kaiser. She's like the Cambridge Analytica whistleblower that had that documentary made up. And we spent, a couple of days there together. She's really into renewable energies with Bitcoin and all sorts of different stuff, things like that. And prior to that, I was with the Ryan Serhant, the guy that's from $1 Million Listing in New York. And, we just really connected and stuff. And so I want to take some of these people, bring them to Decentraland, bring them to the community. It doesn't have to be necessarily about stocks. This is just really relevant stuff, right? Like, how cool would it be to talk about somebody that really understands privacy well and understands things about, like, owning your data, blah, 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 or another guy that knows really about the ins and outs of real estate, right? Hanging out and finding a way to make it meaningful, right? And in order to do that, it's all right. Well, what are we going to do? We're going to charge people? That's kind of stupid. That's kind of shitty, right? I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but by the way, I'm known for screwing these things up. I was supposed to keep the Decentraland thing a secret a couple podcasts ago, and I was like, yep, full transparency. I can tell you everything except for the name of the company, because we haven't signed. And Decentraland, they've been great. And I stopped myself. But.
Yeah. It was another dad moment.
Anyways, no. So these NFTs. So I figured that, like, these NFTs are an excellent way. In addition, we're putting all sorts of different utility around there, like improved financial incentives and experience within the DApp itself. Right. We're taking the proceeds, which I believe that we've put this chart out to the various websites, so that you can see how money that's made from the NFTs is being recycled back into the DApp for developing an app. I really want to have a downloadable app so that you can use these things with, and marketing and all sorts of other wonderful things. But also to say, hey, you are an identified valuable member. Let's come meet whatever it could be, anywhere from Mike Tyson to these really huge big business moguls, and just chat like on a semi-intimate kind of level to that. And what a better place to do that, not only technologically possible and easy thanks to the infrastructure that's set up, but what a better way to do that than to reward people that identify themselves as, hey, I am, a member of this community and I want to receive all these benefits. And I'm really looking forward to having a lot of these events in Decentraland, because I absolutely loved it.
I think when we initially spoke about it, that's where we really connected, was around a utility token, right? And I think you're in a very unique position where you've got a DApp, it's on Binance, and you're also planning to do all these different experiences which are on Ethereum. And I feel like, there are lots of different projects that speak about this vision of utility and benefits, but you've already been able to execute and activate on that already within an event, and you've already got the DApp that you can do these things with. It just makes total sense, but you can activate very quickly. So, for a holder to be able to have and experience those benefits at hand is really, really special. I do feel like lots of different entities and communities speak about it, but it's the reason to why we connected on Decentraland. I felt like your penny drop moment was around that whole utility token. It was like, this isn't just a generative art project. It's something that I'm jam packing with rewards and benefits in perpetuity potentially, and I can do that. So,
well, I think that's why it's a good team, right? Because we have, the diehard NFT guy, Vix. He just, I'm so happy that he's a part of this team, because he adds his, it's got to be cool. It's got to have the rare Pepe. It's got to have, these things. And he's passionate about the artwork, and he's picky about it. And I could give a flying F about what it looks like, right? Because, and that's why, but I realize that, and I realize that complements each other. I want this token to just be just this little thing that says you own the token, and that's it. I could care less, because once you own the token, all the experiences that come alongside with it are awesome, right? But at the same time, we're realizing that this is a community, whatever. So the design for these things appeals to all of the NFT art collectors out there. And just as a reminder, in case you guys didn't talk about this in the beginning, we're selling these raffle tickets right now on WSB collectibles.io. And you go there, you buy the raffle ticket. Essentially, it's a work around these crazy gas fees, and you'll either get your airdropped NFT or you'll get your money back here in a couple of weeks. And all the details are online. Anyway, so once you get your Diamond Hands NFT, or you could also wait for after the raffle and to purchase it publicly, I guess, but then you have to pay a lot more in gas fees. Once you get that, you get 3 additional ones. You get the Diamond Hands plus the Bull, the Bear, the Ape, which do have all that super cool art, the properties that make them really unique. And I've been privy to some of these algorithms behind the scene, and I'm flabbergasted to the ingenuity that goes into it. I think it's super cool that we don't know what these things are going to look like until they're minted. I think that's just that. I mean, when I say we, I literally mean nobody knows. That you give the instructions to the computer and you let the random seed take over. That's truly unique. And anyway, so it's got all that component. And as far as I'm concerned, this thing is just going to be utility after utility after utility. I don't even care about the resale value, because the way that we're setting it up for is so that nobody's ever going to want to sell them. So resale value will be irrelevant. But that was
or
astronomical.
When you spoke about like Vix and the team within, behind it, I feel the blend of both parties really has helped drive it to where it is today, where, I instantly saw you took an interest within the utility, and it was like, you got it. You asked questions about it. You wanted to explore more. And then you got the VIX on the other side, which is like, yeah, but it needs to fit this, I want to see the Pepe, right? And I think that blend has really helped it come to a project that we probably didn't know we signed up for at the start. Like, I definitely actually I don't think we all knew what we were signing up for, but where it's come out is a really beautiful place where there are multiple different parts that really blend to different parts of this community. But as a holistic vision for it, it's this super utility token that looks goddamn cool too. And like within Chun-Li and the team, like, I feel like, we represent, multiple genders, which is such a challenging aspect of, not only crypto, but financial, services and I feel there's multiple different aspects to this that, yes, the art leans to, but what you're planning to do in the future and what you can reward those that buy in, it exists, and that there isn't on an empty promise either. Like, we might see this in the future. You've already done it, and you're already keen to explore more, and that's an exciting part of where we can go in the future too. So, yeah, bring it on.
Yeah. All right, we're
gonna. Sarah's about to kick us out.
Yeah.
and the coffee's just hit on a whole nother level. I shouldn't do this before a podcast. So yeah.
But I will say, like, you know, because of the enduring nature of this, which is also really exciting, Adam, I think we're going to probably have you come back on the regular so we can keep checking in and you know, watch the developments unfold in this world. My only regret is that Vix isn't here to talk to us about NFTs, which is Jamie said, his favorite topic, and I think probably comes up about 12 times a day. But no, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for the incredible work that you guys did on this project.
It's a pleasure.
Yes, thank you very much. And just a shameless plug, we're going to be doing a Twitter Spaces Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Central Time.
It'll be great.
So that's 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm really looking forward to that as well.
Yeah. All right. Thank you both, guys. We'll follow up. Twitter Spaces Tuesday, and
let's get Vix on. Let's get Vix on. Oh,
Vix
is Spaces.
Hold on a second.
Let's get Vix on.
How do you make this thing? Oh, I'm not. There it is. That's what I was trying to do. He's listening.
I do. LOL. I love it. I love it. And thank you. We'll have you back again. And Jamie, I'm sure I'll talk to you super soon.
Take care, guys.
Take care. Have a good night, day, whatever.
Yep.